good morning. Happy South by Southwest. Thanks so much for coming out and joining us this Sunday morning. So I am Vacante. I am a managing partner at Collabsco, also part of the Fast Company executive board. So I write for them. So check it out. Um, but I'm so excited because this morning to join this incredible panel to cover innovators today and the future of play. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Hello. I guess I'm first on intros. My name is Chris Down. I'm Chief Design Officer of Design and Innovation for Mattel. Meaning I lead toy design and our innovation ventures inside of the company. You'll learn more about that later. Great. Mitchell Berger. I'm the EVP of Global Commerce at Crunchyroll. Anime folks. Thank you, Free. I appreciate that. We'll talk later. Talk about best shows and things like that. But I head our global commerce group. So our theatrical, home entertainment, consumer products, and content licensing group will work with third partners to spread anime love across the world.
And I'm Nick Hill, co-founder and chief innovation officer of Sawhorse. And Sawhorse, we're a creative agency that tells brand stories and makes immersive marketing. Excited to be here.
Great. Thanks so much. So for today, we will dive into, I'm actually going to share kind of a landscape of what's going on in the power of play. And then each of our speakers, we're going to share real world examples and kind of behind the scenes of some of their work that they're doing. And then we'll kind of round it out with a conversation just on a couple of key topics and takeaways. So we'll dive in. So diving into the power of play, play is such a big topic, and we really see this new definition of play and it being beyond the toy aisle and beyond the console and really beyond the screen. You know, we see it as more creativity, community, and connection. Now, here are some big numbers, just rounding out play and a little bit of foreshadowing of what we'll talk about. But some big numbers here, 94% of people globally believe play is beyond sort of childhood, like it applies to everybody. 70% of people find their most creative ideas are through play. And then 7 billion plus in toy sales in 2024, that means it's the #1 spending segment are kidults. So we're seeing a huge growth in that multi-generational play. And then 75% of fans are more likely to engage with brands who really embrace their fandom and celebrate their fandom in authentic ways. And then, of course, there's 86 million of Americans who are buying on like live shopping around their fandom. And then this last one here, this is the good news. I'll start with the bad news and round it out. The bad news is that there's $780 billion left on the table from brands who aren't connecting and providing those simple experiences in the ways that fans want to play or love. But the good news is this number here. And the good news is that those brands who are providing those connected and emotional experiences with their consumers are seeing 140% increase. So we like those numbers. I think everybody here is like that. Now, what I'm going to do is dive into kind of 5 drivers of what the future of play looks like here. And the first one is creativity and imaginative play, excuse me. And that's really everything from kind of like your physical toy to world building in digital worlds. And here's a little smattering of examples, so everything from building in Minecraft to Roblox, but also that physical play experience. For example, there's Tony's at the top there. It's a screen-free experience. You can put your collectible on and sort of listen to story. The next one here, no surprise, is multi-generational play. So everybody from Gen Alpha to those kidults that we talked about. This year's really a big year for fans for all ages alike, right? Pokemon had its big 30th anniversary this year. And then on top of it, next year, we have the 50th for Star Wars. So all of you Star Wars fans, it's an exciting time. And then the next one here is connected play and stories and experiences. So really, how are brands bringing out those story worlds, connecting with the IP in really meaningful ways? And just a couple of examples to highlight here. And again, this happens in the physical and digital world. How are we seeing those stories play out? So, for example, Mattel recently launched their Uno experience in both Roblox and Fortnite. And they did a great job of taking that IP and translating it into those digital experiences. And then, of course, there's a couple of examples here. And then we have commerce in playful ways. And this is everything from, you think commerce, you think maybe online shopping or store, but we're saying commerce in playful ways in really all of those places. So in game, in stream, in store, of course. A couple of examples here I wanted to share that kind of hit on those. Of course, we have our friends Crunchyroll here, and they have a phenomenal program that's playing one of the best for fans, and it's called Anime. And a couple of examples here were Crunchyroll teamed up with Uniqlo and had a manga artist come in the store. So you meet the artist, of course, get some merch while you're there. And then in Best Buy, having exclusives, promo items, and then at Funko Pop store in Hollywood, when that Funko Pop dropped, having the voice actors from Jujutsu Kaisen come in and have meet and greets. So a really great way to connect with the community. And then on top of it, Mattel have Mattel Revealed, which is really behind the scenes of what's happening at Mattel with all of their biggest fans. And it's a show, but also shoppable. And then lastly, rounding this one out here with Different, I was actually excited to work on this one. We teamed up with Nikkei 30 and Chica, who are Fortnite icons, had a stream with them where it was duos against squads. Anytime they won, we rewarded their community. And then here, this is sort of our last one as we round it out, is co-creating and collaborating. So really collaborating with fans, with the community, and then also key collaborators. And we can't forget AI. It's the topic of the show, right? So a couple of examples here with Mattel Creations teaming up with collaborators. Bandai Namco, they have their creator collective program. Lego have various student design programs and the like. And then Hasbro recently talked about their AI Peppa Pig helping them to collab with ideas. And so bringing all of this together, what are the drivers for what's next? These are really kind of key considerations and actions to think about looking ahead. So as we talked about that creativity and imaginative play, if you're a brand, really designing those open-ended experiences that apply to all ages. Multi-generational play, really bringing that fan-first experience, creating those shared moments, connected play and stories. So really thinking about your IP and thoughtfully, how is it going to extend? How is it going to make those rich stories? And then commerce in playful ways. So really meeting fans where they're at and turning those moments into really joyous experiences. And of course, that make it easy to shop on the spot. And then lastly, co-creating and collaborating along the way. So with that, our rallying cry for the group here to drive the future of play together.
Okay, so thanks for the frame up, Val. There's so much in this, and if you're sitting in the audience and you've come to this session, then of course you're wondering like, what is the relationship of play and kind of what I do. Many of you folks are maybe brand holders or you're creating new things. I would say no matter what you're doing, from barista at Starbucks to founder of a startup. Play probably has a role in making whatever you're doing successful and more successful. So I think probably all our sessions, certainly in the next couple of minutes from a Mattel point of view, I'm going to try to unpack a little bit of that, although it's a short amount of time. So I'm going to also give you some reading to go explore at your own on the internet. But Mattel really started, and it's as a toy and a play company, and it's kind of like no duh obvious. Our founders there is Ruth and Elliot. This is a few years after actually they founded the company in 1945. They started out making little doll furniture, picture frames, but they quickly started observing people around them. The people around them were little people, like little people as in children, and saying, hey, there are some opportunities in this spaces. Post-war, they started innovating and saying, how are we going to leverage some of the things that are going on, opportunities in the space, and manufacture as an opportunity as shifting from kind of military pursuits to product pursuits using factories, etc. And their first breakout hit was a ukulele. They called the Ukadoodle, and it broke through, and it really set up the foundation. That was in 1947. Foundation for what Mattel later became. And that observation of what to do, they knew that music was something that resonated with kids of all ages. They recognized that there was an intersection of being able to make something and put it out into the market, and they hit it right. Later, they came up with a little brand called Barbie. Ruth actually observing her own daughter Barbara playing with baby dolls and nurturing play, and recognizing that there was another intersectional opportunity to meet the demand that was at that point unmet around doll play and fashion dolls. And Elliot, a few years later in 1968, did a similar thing with Hot Wheels. Those are some Hot Wheels. There was an opportunity to be fulfilled the market. So now it's the number one selling toy on the planet, Hot Wheels. And there are literally tens of thousands of toys, many unsuccessful, many successful, that have come through since then. What I will say is all of the insights and wisdom and the why behind the what has been driven from observing the opportunity with consumers, which I think is the first step. And in our case, in toy case, it's observing the opportunity of fulfilling play and creating the circumstances for play. So the first thing I want you to do when you go out of here and you're standing in line for your next session is look up Stuart Brown. Stuart Brown is somebody a psychologist that really looked into and started to recognize the value of play in primates and animals and in humans, and started to recognize what some of the downsides of the absence of play. Serial murderers, I'm going to just throw that one out there just to pique your interest so you actually go and check him out. He founded the National Institute of Play in the 90s, but he started exploring play in the 60s when he recognized that the absence of play actually leads to really bad things, but the presence of play leads to really great things. So it's fundamental, and it's an anchor to everything we do and what our brains stand for, even when we go beyond toys. And so I'm gonna run a clip right now that shows actually the minority of what it shows is toys, but it does show how we're exercising our brands across a number of touch points and consumer engagement points that go beyond toys. But you'll recognize it.
Get ready, stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready. If I do it now, it's cause I've been said it. Can't hold me down cause I'm floating. Head up, eyes open. No, now what you wanna jam? You can jam with me. Now jump up on the stands like a trampoline. Step it like a bear, make it stand up. Everybody put your hands up. Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Hold up. It feel good, don't it? When you put the time in, it look good on you. On top of the world, something good coming. Get ready for it. Get ready. Everybody get for it. Get ready for it.
So a lot of what we're doing at Mattel is really trying to figure out like where are consumers, not just where they're at, but where they're going, where are they going, and what is compelling the got a hot mic. And what is next? How are they engaging? What platforms are they on? And then how can we authentically, from a brand point of view, because every brand has a certain value and a certain purpose, how can we authentically take what that brand represents and then marry it with something, we call it innovation, with something new that delights existing fans. Turn that down just a little bit. It delights existing fans, brings in new audiences, and continues to make these, in some cases, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100-year-old brands. I mean, Fisher-Price is older than Mattel, and it's part of our portfolio, relevant to today's consumers. So what do we have next in the pipeline? We've got a couple of movies coming out. Come on, check it out. Masters of the Universe. Yeah. Coming up this summer. Matchbox Me coming out in the fall, direct streaming on Apple. We have something that I may or may not get into later, but you'll certainly hear about over the next 12 months called Mattel Ventures, which is doing shit that Mattel hasn't done before. And then I'm going to leave you with something. It's a little Skeletor meme. It's the moment, Masters. But you know, I think one of the next areas that I know Mattel has been playing with, I think that everybody on the panel is playing with, is from the world of user generated and connecting with your consumers, not a way you're just delivering something to them, but allowing them to deliver something to their fans, their friends, and back to the brand. So this one's for you guys.
Oh, West, South by Southwest. You overpaid for a platinum badge, stood in line for an hour for a session on play, and Mattel sends this mere mortal. I expected the future. I get a slideshow about imagination. I've delayed conquering Eternia for less.
Try to make it more fun of itself, a little bit of a Sora 2 play. We did give OpenAI the rights to use Skeletor, and they are playing the hell out of him, and so are all of you. With that, something that we know everybody loves is swag, stuff we all get. So as you are exiting, if you stay for the whole thing, which I know you will, you might get something that looks like a Hot Wheels car, but is actually a gateway into your imagination. It is a storytelling machine that takes you into a portal of play, and it will be yours on the way out the door. So with that, Mitchell?
I have nothing to give you on the way out. Just so we're clear. Hi, Mitchell with Crunchyroll. Before we start, I just want to play you guys a quick reel just to give you a sense of who Crunchyroll is and what anime is if you're not already familiar with the space.
I love Crunchyroll!
I love Crunchyroll!
This is the Anime Effect.
At Crunchyroll, our mission is to bring fans closer to the anime they love.
Anime fans are hardcore.
Hi, we are Sam from Japan.
Look at this.
Crunchyroll always brings it.
So when we're getting ready for the panel, one of the things that I was trying to think through is one of the things that's incredibly important to me is fandom. I love fandom. I'm a big fan of fans. I am a fan myself. I'm a massive Star Wars nerd, which we'll get to later, I'm sure, at some point. Everyone's got a fandom. And I was thinking about, like, what is fandom? Like, what is it that defines that? And for me, fandom is when you go from consuming content into interacting with content. It's that evolution. It's not just a passive engagement. It's an active engagement. So then I started thinking about what interacting with content really means, and that's play. It could be playing with an action figure. It could also be going to a theater with a bunch of folks and having an experience. It could be wearing a t-shirt. All those are places where you've made a choice and you want to interact. You go buy a T-shirt for Dragon Ball. Sure, it's great. You want to wear it. It's really cool. But one of the reasons you're buying that is because when you're at 7-Eleven getting a slushie, you want the guy behind the counter to go, "Hey man, is that Dragon Ball? It's really cool," and have a conversation. That's an interaction. That's a type of play. That's something that you get to share your love of this thing with someone else. And that's what we at Crunchyroll are trying to do, is enable that for our fan base. So when you look at this, we're not just watching anime, we're living it. And that's what we're enabling. And this is what we call our flywheel. All these different touch points where we're trying to work with folks and give them the opportunity to engage with content, whether it's through streaming, which everyone's familiar with. That's where you kind of introduce yourself to the content and you become that fan of the content. But we have theatrical, we do computer games, consumer products, manga, events, news, social, and community. All those are places where our fans have an opportunity to show this love that they have and interact with folks around them. I spent a lot of time with theatrical, and we'll talk about in a second, but one of the great things about the theatrical experience is you can go to see a film. You're in a movie theater with 200 folks who are there and love this thing as much as you do. That particular moment with those particular 200 people where you see that film and the reactions is something unique that you'll never experience again. That moment will never happen again. It's something that only you have. You can go back the next day, different experience. That's what I love about it. That's a way that you get to experience this and share your fandom and play with this content and folks that love it. That's what we're trying to do at Crunchyroll. So a couple of things about anime fans. Again, big fan of the fans. We did a giant study. This is my homework. So go check out our study online that we just did. But I pulled out 3 facts I thought were very interesting. One is 44% of adults identify as anime fans. Just think about that. That is a crazy number of what 10 years ago, 20 years ago felt like a niche genre. It's gone mainstream. It's bigger than K-dramas and Bollywood. 83% of teens say that anime has impacted their life. So think about that. That is having real world impacts on people and helping them express who they are and make connections. And that's the last one. 78% of fans bond over anime. This is a way that you can go out and find your tribe. This is a way that you can help tell people who you are and what you believe in. It's a really amazing social glue that holds this community together. So let's talk a little bit about Demon Slayer. Are there any Demon Slayer fans? Okay. Okay, don't be shy. This is a safe space. It's okay to be a Demon Slayer fan. So Demon Slayer came out last year. This is an amazing franchise that we have. We're putting out a trilogy of films, but the first one out last year. And it was an absolute global phenomenon. It was the number 7 box office film of the entire year, the global box office. I won't go through all the highlights. Suffice it to say, Demon Slayer did incredibly well. We set records. First movie at the North American box office that was anime to crack $100 million at the box office. So why did this happen? What was it? Well, one, it was great content. I think everything starts with great content. It's got to be a good story. It's got to be beautiful. It's got to be authentic. But 2 is about the community. We spent so many years building up this story and building a community around Demon Slayer that when it came time to put this penultimate arc out, to have that experience in theater, people came out in droves, and it was absolutely amazing. We also did a lot with other things around it. And these are just some examples of some things that we've done. So on Infinity Castle, we have wonderful partnership with the LA Dodgers, these amazing hats. I might have 1 or 2 of them in my office. Not gonna share that. But we also did some great stuff with boba tea. We did an amazing promotion with theaters with popcorn buckets, just things to bring this to life out there and give people a way again to interact with this thing they love. We're also big into gaming. So you guys are familiar with Venn diagrams. If you were to do a Venn diagram of gamers and anime fans, almost the entire anime circle would be inside the gamer circle. So not all gamers are anime fans, but almost all anime fans are gamers. So it's a really good intersection that we like to play with and like to enable to, again, give people a chance to play. So it's some of the stuff that we've done on Minecraft, with Roblox, with Fortnite, some promotions we've done on Discord. It's a natural connection. It feels authentic. It's meeting people where they're already at. And we think that's one of the reasons that it resonates so incredibly well. So that is anime and Crunchyroll. I'll pass it off.
Hey guys, I'm Nick from Sawhorse, as I said earlier. And I guess gotta say, big shout out to South by Southwest. I think this is the best conference of the year. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Yeah. They did job this year, so I'm just stoked to be here. And so I'm coming at it from the immersive marketing side. So we work with some of the biggest brands in the world to help them engage with consumers in really deep ways. That is kind of the future of marketing. So before I jump into it, I'll play the sizzle and then we'll chat a bit.
Merry Christmas!
Oh my god!
Game changer!
There's only one hope. Walmart Express Delivery.
Ooh, Walmart could do that!
I need your help to find my lost inventory.
Quick, Lance, what's missing? Binky, easy.
I did it!
Here it comes!
It's just a salad and a sandwich.
I'll take it. The you pick 2.
We all love a good comeback. I would know. Apartments.com will help you find a place so perfect you'll never want to leave. Bookie Badger?
Haven't seen him.
Check, please.
So I'll kick it off by saying this term that I tend to say, which is marketing doesn't have to suck. And what I mean by that is we're so used to advertising and marketing being intrusive, billboards, commercials. The old way was a brand, which, getting in front of you or getting in your way and saying, I'm really great, you should buy my product. And that's worked for a really long time, but the world has changed. People they're consuming content in different ways. And we have to figure out how to keep up with that. And so that's one of the things we do at Sawhorse is really help brands cut through. So we do immersive marketing. And what that means is advertisements that are entertaining in the form of branded content across social platforms and playable in branded games across UGC gaming platforms like Roblox and Fortnite. And the big difference here is we're actually adding value. We're entertaining. Fans and consumers are opting in to play these experiences or consume this content, and they're getting value from it. And in addition to that, it's non-interruptive. We're finding ways to be so integrated that brands are just showing up in the things that the consumers and the audiences are already doing, and it's giving them a lot of joy in the process. And we really feel like this is the future of advertising. And so I have 3 case studies I want to chat through briefly before we jump into the conversation. The first one being How to Train Your Dragon. This was a project that we did on Roblox. So Universal came to us to help promote the new movie that was coming out. So we built a huge 3D immersive world on the Roblox platform, met the consumers where they are, and it's been a huge success with over 63 million visits to date, an amazing like ratio, and one of the top branded experiences on the platform. And what's interesting here is that this started as an immersive marketing sort of play, like kind of like an immersive trailer to promote the film. But it did so well that instead of taking it down after the promotion window, the brand decided to keep it up indefinitely and turn it into a persistent experience. So now we're monetizing this every single month. We're doing live ops every single week. And we're basically keeping the brand top of mind to this massive community on Roblox. Roblox has 150 million daily active users. So they're basically keeping the ball in the air, if you will, until the next movie comes out in about a year. And they'll be able to have this always on engaging conversation with their fan base. The next example I'll show is the new Jason Statham film, Shelter, which we brought to Fortnite. Any Jason fans in the audience? Yeah, right? This movie's pretty dope. You should check it out. It's on streaming now. But so totally different environment, you're right? Roblox is a completely different UGC gaming platform than Fortnite. different audience, different expectations, different game types. We figured out how to take this film and bring it into the Fortnite platform in an organic way that that player base would like. So obviously this is a R-rated film. It's a shooter. So Fortnite was a more natural home for it. And yeah, it had an amazing success. We were able to translate Jason Statham's character into a full avatar, integrate him in. We're able to build this roguelike game that was really in line with the lore and the story of the film. And it was like one of the top rated maps for a couple weeks while we were promoting the film. And it was actually featured by Epic and promoted on the main page. And the last example I'll give, this is a project that we did with Coca-Cola to promote the limited flavor can that they came out with, the Coke Y3000. That was a futuristic Coke flavor. And what we did is we made a mobile app or a web app that is a Gen AI co-creation app for fans. So what we did is we put a QR code on the side of the can, and we allowed users to take a photo of their environments. And then we went through Gen AI and would give a photo of what that place looked like in the year 3000. And it was cool because we had little drag and drop prompts for the users. So they didn't have to have a background of prompting. They could just organically change the image. And then once it was done, it was shared. They make it share on social with their friends. So this was a huge success, and Coca-Cola really enjoyed the process and got a ton of engagement with their fans. But what I really love about this is the co-creation. This is where you open up the brand to have fun and play with and allow your consumer base to build, experiment, and share. So, thank you.
Now we'll dive into the conversation. We have a couple of topics here. I guess the first one, and this is for the group, would love to hear, your point of view on what's happening with tech, what trends are kind of impacting your business, and what does it mean to play?
I mean, I can jump in. It wouldn't be a South by Southwest panel if we didn't talk about AI for a hot second and maybe a little bit more. I think there are two aspects of that technology in terms of like the capability that it puts into the hands of creators, which certainly in Mattel, where we're very creative heavy in product development, product design, engineering, and so forth, and we're creating a lot of not just digital experiences, but physical products. We're using it a lot on the ideation, the front end, and we're using a range of tools, a variety of things. Certainly on further downstream, things like Adobe and Firefly we use to in kind of our packaging practice, which that's IP safe. Where things are a little bit hazier at this stage, we will use in ideation, but we measure the IP compliance in terms of how well is this representing the Mattel brand that it is, or our partner brand in terms of how that goes through our creative pipeline. On the outside of it, we're really in terms of external facing, using AI. You saw Skeletor, and I know it's the whole even bringing OpenAI up in the context of this is a little bit tough, but let's talk about kind of what it allows us to do in terms of creating consumer engagement. It's interesting and it's exciting because it does allow consumers to, in that case, co-create with us, which we think is really, really interesting. We're playing with it more in the adult space and not the kid space, because it's an area, certainly from a kid point of view, where we have a huge obligation to ensure that we're doing things in a safe, high quality, not just IP specific way, but protecting kids through play.
It's interesting for us at Crunchyroll because we sit at this intersection. We're both a tech company and an entertainment company. We have a platform that we're out there driving. So one of the things for us that we look at is how do we always make sure that platform, that experience is something that the consumers like, that feels authentically Crunchyroll and is quality. So one great example is this year we've launched in the US a manga service. It was something that fans have told us for a very long time. They really enjoy reading manga. They want to interact with it. They want to interact with their Crunchyroll. So we've added that to our platform. It's not core to what the streaming platform wasn't there, but we were out figure out a way to do that felt very Crunchyroll and brought that tech in so that you can enjoy the manga, so that you can have a seamless experience on our platform. I think it's really enhanced that. So that's one of the things that we're always looking for is how do you enhance that experience to make sure that we're on that track of making sure that customers are delighted every time they come and interact with us on the platform side.
Yeah, and that's really nice talking about the manga extension because we know anime fans love manga, but just to have it as a nice extension to the existing experience they have. I believe it's an additional subscription, right?
It is. It's included in one of the tiers. It's just a way to make sure that as a member of Crunchyroll, we're always adding value. There's always something else there for you to make that something that you're going to come back to month after month.
All in one place.
All in one place. All you can say.
I would just say that, with technology, and then you were asking about like how are we leveraging these things. The important thing to remember is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Like a new tech should come out, and a lot of brands kind of gravitate toward that, and they say like, give me one of those. But sometimes it's just not relevant to what that brand is, or it feels forced. So I think it's really important to remind and go back to what the core of the challenge is. What is the brand ethos? And how are we translating that to the minds of consumers? And what tech is relevant should we leverage in order to do that properly? And I would piggyback on what you were saying, Chris, about AI, like Gen AI. It's moving so fast, and you have the ability to co-create. And I think that's an area that I'm the most excited about. And I wanted to mention what Roblox is doing. I don't know if you're familiar with the latest announcement, but now inside of games in real time, users can prompt 3D objects that not only they can that visually look the way they want them to, but they also come with the code. So you could say, I want a car that looks like a banana with a rocket, and not only will that in real time show up inside the game you're playing, but it will have the mechanics and the code to be drivable. So I think what's really exciting, if that I'm excited about, is designing experiences and games where the people inside of them are designing and building in ways that they never have before. So I think from a creative standpoint, that's really an opportunity for brands to really get crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited too because it just makes it easier and more accessible. Like, as a fan, right? You have like, oh, what if this happened, or what if that happened, or I would love if whatever happened. But maybe they're not a coder, or maybe they're not like a game dev, or maybe they just don't know how to draw really well. I don't know. But having, some of those accessible tools, I think it's going to be really exciting. And thinking about things like fan art and how that evolves, or like what you guys are doing, Skeletor as an example. But, how are fans going to start translating those stories or inspiring new products or ideas? I think it's interesting. Let's see. Before we go to the next, let's talk about one of the trends is because Chris, you touched about with Mattel and the sort of older audience, that kidult number is really big. So, in terms of maybe Nick, in terms of any of the work you're doing in audience, is that impacting anything you're doing, or for any of you really, are you seeing an uptick in what you're creating, how you're creating, or anything revolving that big kidult number?
I'll start. I think for us, when you look at that kidult section, it's all about collectibles. I think that's where it really manifests itself in the anime world is people want to own something, a tangible piece of this IP that they love, that they've seen, that they've watched, that they've shared with their friends. So we're looking at ways to offer things, whether it's a very high-end collectible home entertainment release. And yes, home entertainment is still alive and kicking and very, very ownable. But enhancing that with a chess set or an exclusive pendant or something like that to make it a little more collectible. Looking at ways that we can create exclusive opportunities, a drop that is a limited time that creates a little bit of FOMO, but something that is ownable, that is tangible. And I think that is an interesting trend in this digital first world that we all live in now that's very ephemeral. There is this turn that you're starting to see back to the tangible, back to ownership, back to it's mine. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can I'm a big reader. I love to read books digitally, but I also love to have them on my shelf and you can smell them and you can touch them. And it's a fundamentally different experience. And I think that you're going to see, not only the kidult genre demographic there, but this younger fan base is going to come to that. It's going to be something we see it in music. It's binary. And that is vinyl. Vinyl's ownable. It's tangible. It's there. It's a different experience. And it lives alongside streaming. They both serve different needs. I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the coming years, and we're trying to lean into that ownability around things that are anime.
Yeah, I agree. And I know we mentioned kidults, but it's really interesting to see, we'll call them Gen Alpha, those cuspers, right? Who are cusping Gen Alpha and Gen Z. They grew up mainly with a lot of digital product, right? It was like a lot of apps. It was maybe Angry Bird apps or different things like that. Lego Life, that was something that got Lego fans really excited, taking pictures. It was like the kid safe version of Instagram with Lego. They retired it. You know what happened to all those kids' memories? Disappeared. They're gone. They don't exist. And so I think because of examples like that, you're seeing these kids who are like, I want the vinyl, or I want the physical manga. I want the digital thing too. I want to have that experience, but I need to have that.
I do think, I mean, at a macro level, I love Mitchell, what you were saying about like walking into a convenience store with a Demon Slayer or whatever your fandom is, and like why do you do that? And I think that signaling is a big part, like signaling fandom in order to create connections, right? That is what that story represented. There's something going on. I mean, it is the fastest growing. Like, it's ironic that we're sitting here in 2026 in the fastest growing segment of toys, and it has been for the last 4 years of toys. People is adult, the adult consumer. That's the fastest growing segment. That is, I believe, a little bit of the sign of the it's a bit of sign of the times. It's a bit of kind of, there's a democratization of kind of what people can engage with, and it's gaming and it's content and it's toys and it's all kinds of other things. And I think that it's a little bit of kind of a tidal wave that has raised the ocean to a new norm, where I don't think that audience is going to go away. I think that actually another way, it's maybe a different way of kind of looking at the same code, but I do think that the benefit of play to humanity, this is getting, not to get too crazy deep on it, but I think that play is a little bit of the antidote to some of the tension that we all feel. It is about escaping. We just did this study called Shape of Play. Another thing to go and check out, Shape of Play. We did it last year. 33,000 people around the world that we talked to, including adults, including kids, and heard directly from them the benefit, the attraction, the need, and the persistence of play.
I want to piggyback on that a little bit about this concept of play and interactivity, if you apply it to storytelling. And if we think about storytelling in general, it started with cavemen, and that was always interactive. Think about it. Like, they were making sounds and moving around and like touching things and telling stories, right? And then somehow, as we evolved, we created the media system, so we were like making really polished content, that was produced, and it was like a video or a still, and then it was distributed to the world, and we had much more reach, but we lost the touch. I think this digital revolution of interactivity is actually tying back into our primal need as storytellers to connect. So I think it's really like an evolution of ways of connecting.
And I would add to that, I think you're onto something. It's the connection. And, and we're in this digital first world. I think people are craving in-person and live connections. And they live both. So the example I always use is music. I'm a big music fan too. You can sit, as I was this morning getting ready, and listen to Metallica in your headphones or a speaker, and it is a wonderful experience. Like, it's 7:00 on a Sunday morning is really the only way I got here. But that's one experience. I'm going to go see them in the Sphere in October live. Fundamentally different experience, because it's a crowd, it's live, it's an energy. So I was talking about earlier with theatrical, it's a unique moment in time. Both of those serve needs. Both of them feed off each other. That's why streaming and theatrical, for example, are not in conflict with each other. They're fundamentally different experiences. And I think play plays a big part of that. Is people crave that experience of interaction with other people and what's going on. It serves this base human need that we all have, that to your point, is probably lacking these days, and people are craving.
Well, and that's a great segue to the next sort of topic here, which you guys kind of touched on, is Willie, what are the opportunities for brands and play? What are the opportunities in community? What are the opportunities with, how you collaborate? What
Like I love the question. It kind of ties back to what we've been touching on a little bit. Like we're at this really interesting moment in the history of humanity where kind of anything feels like it's possible. Yeah. And AI is kicking that door wide open if it was only cracked open before. And even like, I mean, graphics. So we were having a conversation yesterday about like, I was listening to your podcast live, like, rather like consumers are less and less interested in like 4K, 10K, 1000K graphics, high fidelity. It's the next PS6, 7, 8, not like, okay, it's no longer about processing power and fidelity because it's gotten to a point where it feels pretty damn real. And if that doesn't feel real enough, throw on a headset, so yeah. And so they're looking for what is then the novelty of what that experience is? What is the quality of the experience? What is the uniqueness because of the creator that made it? And how can we make a connection? Because now it's a deep cut that you and I are in. Like it's like this whole other level, which I think is just so interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And I think for me, it's like the real opportunity for brands is to connect deeply with their consumer and have a dialogue that's open. It's opportunities for brands to be vulnerable and connect in ways that really create massive loyalty and brand love, which you never could before. The technologies didn't exist.
Now there are no barriers in how you do that, right?
Exactly. And so there's opportunities now to go deep and build that. And that's what I think is most exciting. The brands like you guys are actually pioneers. You're not afraid. You're taking the risk. You're being vulnerable. You're, diving into communities. You're co-creating. You're growing in that way, and you're leading the industry. So I think it's the brand to lean in that will be the most successful.
I think the other thing is it's up to the brands to help foster a connection. They're the connector point. When we look at what I get to do every day, the way I like to talk about the team is I'm a connection point between two different sides of a pole. On one side, there's a creator somewhere that has a vision. They have a point of view or a story or something that they're trying to put out into the world that they want to share. On the other hand, you've got a consumer who has an emotional need that they need met. They need to laugh, they need to cry, they need to forget. There's something they're trying to fulfill. I think the brands that are most successful, the ones that say, okay, I've got a creator and a fan who both have needs. How do I connect them in an authentic way that doesn't feel forced, that doesn't feel opportunistic, that doesn't feel all about just making money, but really feels about, I'm going to help you fulfill this need and tell your story. And the brands that do that, I think really resonate and are successful. And then all the other things come, the financial, the scope, all that is a byproduct. It's not what drives it. It's about making that connection.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is being really, and it's like community first, fan first. What are the gaps? I think Mitchell, it's interesting with your background and helping, dubs get out on top, like at the same time. That's a massive pain point for fans who I don't want to wait 2 weeks. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait a day. I want to see it at the same time. So anytime that can happen for fans to see their favorite anime, I mean, that's huge, right? But it doesn't happen for everybody, right?
It doesn't. And that's a great example of looking at what the fans need were and trying to find a solution. You go back 5 or 10 years ago, those dubs weren't coming out 2 weeks. They were coming out 6 months later on a home entertainment release. They weren't available in the moment. But we looked at, what are the fans saying? Those dub fans want to be part of the conversation in the community in the moment. So you come up with a technological solution to enable that. And it really has brought so many more people into the fan base because you've removed a barrier and you've helped them connect with that piece of content and with the community that they want to talk about in the moment when it's being broadcast.
And to your point, that brings more community, brings more, right?
It's a big pool. Everybody's welcome.
Well, great. And then in terms of, any kind of, say, partnerships, how does that come into play? Like, how do you guys decide who to team up with?
I think, look, it's really interesting. It's kind of occurring as we're talking about all of this stuff. I mean, it's all very interconnected. What you decide to do with your brands, there's an aspect of experimentation that is kind of the bedfellow of innovation. And and who you partner with has to, we've talked about things like authenticity, brand resonance. I'll bring back again. It's a little bit dry, but actually it really helps you kind of think about what those boundaries and where the new frontiers might be when you actually understand like what is the purpose of the brand, and how does that connect with consumers. Where might I go with it? So everybody creatives do really well when they're creating inside of kind of a framework or a box, understanding what that brand stands for and knowing that there has to be a balance in adhering to or supporting that brand's equity, as you ensure that it stays relevant by observing like what's hot in culture. I'll tell you, like as we think about brand partnerships, hot in culture aligned with brand resonance, it's like, wow. And if there's a fan that is kind of like, I don't know, Billie Eilish and Uno, like really? It was our number one sell in Uno game last year. And it's bananas. I'll tell you, fun fact, by the way, for you, South by Southwest. So we did the Billie Eilish thing. She is actually an Uno fan, as our Swift is an Uno fan as well. But her dad worked at Mattel for years. Yep. For decades, trade show services. A builder. I've got some Mattel folks in the audience, and they're like, what? Are you serious? Billie Eilish's dad? Yep. Billy and Phineas's dad worked. But it's those intersections, understanding like what is the cultural relevance? Like, why do I care? Oh, sometimes it's because it's totally authentic. It didn't even make sense until you told me the story. I love stories. So it's like now it makes sense. And I'm like, okay, Billy and Uno, I'm all in. Other times it's just like, you know what? Why would we do something with with Formula One and Hot Wheels? Oh, two great tastes that go together. Or Daniel Arsham, if you're in the artist community and you love cars, and you love Porsches, and you love kind of his sensibilities, that intersection with an adult fan in the Hot Wheels space worked really, really well also.
I think it's authenticity. For us, it's all about authenticity. I think old school product placement just doesn't work. Like, so if you get a chance, if you haven't seen it, there's this, what I think is maybe the best example ever of why this doesn't work. When they released Star Wars in Latin America years ago on television, they couldn't cut into commercials. So what they did was they just cut clips into the actual film where Obi-Wan's going to get the lightsaber for Luke, and he reaches into a cooler and gets a beer. It is one of the most jarring things you've ever seen in your entire life. So good. That to me is what product placement and inauthenticity, that is inauthenticity to a T. You can't have that. It's got to be a partnership and a brand that feels, that fan goes, yeah, there's a reason for this to exist. And again, maybe you have to tell them why. Maybe you have to walk them to the story of why Billie Eilish makes sense for Uno, but it's got to be real. You can't force it. And if you can find those real touch points and the brands you work with understand your brand and connect, then it's gold. It absolutely
It makes it delightful.
Yes, that's it. Larry, that'd be fun. Like you said, it can't suck.
It also can't be jarring. When you're consuming content in the way that you want to, if a brand shows up, you have to say, oh, that's additive. Oh, that's clever how they did that. Or I didn't even notice it, and I enjoyed what I was playing or whatever. Like, that's how you know it's a solid integration. But I would say, like, going back to like good partnerships, at Sawhorse, we're really fortunate to work with some of the biggest brands in the world. We worked with Mattel recently, and it's the good partnerships are the ones where the brands are open-minded. Like, brands are traditionally kind of closed-minded. They have full control over their brand, their IP, their brand guidelines, how they are presented. It's the ones that are a bit more open-minded that come to us and say, how are we going to activate on Roblox in a way that the fans are going to, receive well? I'll give an example. Sam's Club. So we did a project on Roblox for Sam's Club, and that's a tricky brand. That's not the sexiest brand, but we found a way to really make it work for them. And it was because the client was so open-minded. She was like, how are we going to make Sam's Club cool on Roblox? And what do you guys recommend? And one of the things we leaned into was the fact that the Roblox audience is very young, very fun, and they like to lean into the weird, right? And so we suggested, what if we made a mascot of a toilet roll and we turned him into a dude named Rolly, right? And toilet paper is the highest selling product at Sam's Club, which most brands would be like, are you kidding me? You're going to represent my brand with toilet paper? Like, get out of here. But she's like, you know what? I'll trust you. You know, I'll trust the community. And that integration has been phenomenally successful. They've come back 2 times since and done activations, integrations into top games, but with that character. And I think that what I'm saying is it's the brands that take risks, that are open-minded, that really care about the community they're going into, that will be the most successful.
I have a toy idea, Nick. What do you got? Rolly's coming, baby. Oh, I love it.
Exclusively at Sam's Club. So we're almost at time. And of course, we're at South by Southwest. Can't close South by Southwest without talking about the future. So like last sort of comments, what is the future of play? Where do you see it going?
I feel like we're living in the future now. I think the future is every week. You know, like looking at LinkedIn and staying on the pulse of this stuff, it's just mind-blowing, especially with AI. I know it's the buzzword. I'm so tired of saying it, pairing it, but it is impacting what we do at a rate that we can barely keep up with. I mean, the government can't keep up with it, you know? That's for damn sure. So I don't know. I just like to think about it like we're making better campaigns. We're making better content. We're connecting with people in better, more deep ways than we ever have before. So I'm just like ready for whatever tech gets thrown out, and we got to figure out how to leverage it to tell stories more deeply, you know, as a species.
And I think, and as we're riding that technology train, as I said earlier, I think we have to hold on to the physical world. I think there's an inherent value in physical things that we all innately know from birth, and we can't give up on that. We have to continue to feed that collectability and that fan mentality, give them things to play with that they can touch and feel in the real world.
I very much agree with both of you on this. I think that I actually think that all consumers of all ages are going to be more discriminating as we move forward. So I think the future of play, the future of engagement, the future of demand creation and demand capture, and all of the other things that probably everybody in this room represents, the quality of execution, the taste level, and the authenticity, I think those are going to be guiding forces for the things that, not that we do, because we do a lot of stuff that just sucks and do a lot of stuff that really works, but the stuff that works, I think, is going to be guided by those principles.
Well said. Totally agree with you guys.
Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us at South by Southwest. That is, thank you all for joining us and being part of the conversation, and have a wonderful South by Southwest.